Images of bodies and bloody blankets after another Israeli attack in Gaza. Young Israeli soldiers forced into a terrible but necessary war, killed in combat. Heartbreaking reports of civilian suffering and death. The stories from the ground in Gaza are tough, but they're also drowning in misinformation, falsehoods, and different narratives. The international community listens to the United Nations. This Friday, the UN issued a report saying nearly 70% of those killed in Gaza were women and children. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza reports that around 44,000 people have been killed since the beginning of the war. Not distinguishing between fighters and civilians, they claim most are women and children. But less than 20% of the total number of deaths in the war has been independently verified so far. By September 2024, the UN Human Rights Council had been able to confirm 8,119 deaths.
As of now, we have about 10,000 fatalities that we have verified, including 4,700 children, that's about 45%, and 2,461 women, that's about 25%. So the overall 70% women and children remains for now.
When they say children, it's everyone under 18, and we know that there's a clear trend for Hamas using child fighters. And if we look at the breakdown of the 43,344 that Hamas are claiming, we can see clear demographic spikes in males between the ages of about 15 and 50, which to me suggests that the IDF are targeting males, which suggests they're targeting fighters.
Gaza's authorities are almost entirely run by Hamas, and the ongoing war makes the independent identification process difficult, causing many statisticians and analysts to question the accuracy of the numbers presented in the report.
The next thing we need to look at is the methodology the UN have used for this report. They've only looked at 8,119 names. And they've said they're verified, which is also very tricky because any verification that takes place in Gaza is clearly going to be tainted by Hamas. They still run a significant part of the Gaza Strip in spite of the IDF's best efforts.
The UN stands by the numbers.
The MOH figures compared with ours in the last escalation, several escalations have matched and they've come very close. So we do not have reasons to believe that this time it's very different. The numbers are, of course, massive compared to previous years, so we do need time to catch up and verify.
The UN based the verification on having 3 independent sources or witnesses to a death, typically neighbors or family members. Almost 90% of their verified fatalities were from large incidents, where at least 5 people were killed.
And what that specifically excludes is any events where casualties were incurred with no witnesses, i.e. people who were in combat with the IDF at the time of dying. So it's a heavily skewed report. And as I said, totally at odds even with Hamas's own numbers.
According to Andrew Fox, the report speaks to a larger issue, the anti-Israel narrative that permeates the UN.
Hamas seem to have been completely deleted from the conversation. It's as if there's a war happening in Gaza just because, and there was nothing behind it, and there's nobody being fought, and it's just Israel going in and blowing huge chunks of Rafah or Khan Yunis or Gaza City off the map for reasons that are kind of unspecified. And it's a very strange narrative. So when they say verified and then they drop 70% in there, it's such a clearly anti-Israel bias.
Israel claims around 18,000 Hamas members have been killed in the war and says approximately 1 civilian has been killed for every fighter, a number it blames on Hamas, showing repeatedly that Hamas hides in hospitals, schools, and homes, using civilians as human shields.